Good morning, everyone. My name is Mudi Leutechukwu. With me are
kevwe-okuna.
We are here today to present NHS LearnPulse, transforming mandatory training across the NHS. We are a postgraduate group from the University of Sunderland, and today we are presenting NHS LearnPulse, a proposal we genuinely believe addresses one of the most overlooked problems in one of the world's largest organizations. Here is the thing. Most of us have been through some versions of mandatory training at work. You click through a module, you answer a few questions, you get your certificate, and if we are being honest, you forgot most of the things by the following week. Now imagine that experience multiplied by 1.5 million employees in an organization where knowledge gaps are not just inconvenient, they can cost lives. That is the reality of the mandatory training in NHS today. NHS England has itself acknowledged that the current system places too much emphasis on compliance of training completion and not enough, and whether training actually improves outcomes. The board responsible for this training has said in writing that the training does not work well. That is where we come in. NHS LearnPulse is an AI-generated adaptive micro-learning platform built specifically for the NHS to replace the existing mandatory training provision delivered through the electronic staff record system. Over the next 10 minutes, we will show you the problem, the solution, how it works in practice, and exactly how we would prove it is working. We also look at the learning needs analysis, which are the internal and the external forces, the tool and the theory, the staff and the manager experience walkthrough, the evaluation framework, and then the conclusion.
Alright, with what my colleague has said, we'll be looking at learning needs analysis, the internal forces. Before we introduce the tool itself, we need to talk about why it is needed. We want to do that with evidence, not assumption. Our learning needs analysis draws on real data from 2024 and 2025. Let us start inside the organization. According to 2024 NHS staff survey, which is the largest workforce study in the world, found that 42% of staff reported feeling unwell due to work-related stress, and 30% often or always felt burnt out. Between March 2024 and March 2025, nearly 152,000 people left active NHS service, a turnover rate of about 9.9%. Nearly 1 in 3 staff are thinking about leaving. That is not a workforce that has the mental bandwidth to sit through long generic e-learning models on a desktop computer. And the compliance data confirms this research into NHS mandatory training attendance found that compliance averages only 50% in many clinical areas, which with low staffing levels cited as the primary barrier. Half in mandatory training, that is the scale of the problem. Now let's talk about look at what is driving change from outside the organization. NHS England has announced changes to mandatory training, which is intended to save up to 200,000 days of staff time, acknowledging that training is currently absorbing far too much of a workforce. Now, that is already stretched. Meanwhile, the NHS State Manned Reform Program is operating across 3 work streams: optimize, rationalize, and redesign, specifically to improve the quality of training delivered and the learning experience of staff. The NHS own national reform agenda is calling for a fundamentally different approach. And then there is the infrastructure shift. The NHS has contracted Infosys to replace the entire ESR system, with full migration expected before 2035. The platform that delivers mandatory training is being decommissioned. This is not background contest. It is the critical window that makes LearnPulse introduction both timely and strategic. The picture is consistent: an overstretched workforce, a broken engagement model, a national reform program calling for change, and a system in transition. The learning needs is not hypothetical. It is documented, urgent, and unresolved, as we can see here. Now, let us look at what is driving change from outside the organization. What are we trying to talk about? We're talking about the external forces of the learning needs analysis. Under the external factors, we look at Statsman Reform Program. Now, what are we trying to talk about here? We're saying NHS England has announced changes to mandatory training intended to save up to 200,000 days of staff time, acknowledging that training is currently absorbing far too much of the workforce and is already stretched. Meanwhile, the NHS Statsman Reform Program is already operating across 3 work streams: optimize, rationalize, and redesign, specifically to improve the quality of training delivered and the learning experience of staff. Another external factor is the NHS long-term workforce plan. Reform pillars commit to 130,000 fewer leavers over 15 years through new ways of delivering training using technology. Another external factor of the learning needs analysis we'll be talking about is the 10-year health plan and AI strategy. Lord, that's the 2024 NHS in foothills of digital transformation government commits AI across workforce development. Another learning needs analysis, another external learning needs analysis we'll be talking about is digital workforce plan gap. NHS England dropped a dedicated digital workforce plan confirmed by FOI request. Trust level solutions must now fill the gap. Now, the NHS own national reform agenda is calling for a fundamentally different approach. And then there is the infrastructure shift. The NHS has contracted Infosys to replace the entire ESRO system with full migration expected before 2035. The platform that delivers mandatory training, it is being decommissioned. This is not background contest. It is the critical window that makes LearnPulse introduction both timely, strategic. The picture is consistent: an overstretched workforce, a broken engagement model, a national reform program calling for change, and a system in transition. The learning need is not hypothetical. It is documented, urgent, and unresolved.
Okay, my colleague talks about the learning needs analysis, and I'm here to talk about the 5 core features of NHS LearnPulse. The system outline NHS LearnPulse, a living platform that builds to the key flows in current training system, noted in a solid learning and evidence. Then we are here to talk about the 5 core features of NHS LearnPulse, and we have the number 1 here is adaptive learning pathways. What does it mean? The AI personalized content by the raw band period knowledge and performance data, and a band 2 HCA and a band 7 manager receive entirely different content sequence. Then when you talk about the second one, we have the micro modules. What does it mean? E-learning industry. What does it mean? The 3 to 5 minutes built for shift breaks or means spaced out reinforcement produces 150% better retention versus traditional training. Then when you talk about this one, we are talking about the third one, which is the spaced repetition engine. And according to the Onedipo at 2025, he says AI surfaces content at the optional moment before the forgetting curve takes hold, proving to enhance long learning retention. This is the third one. Then we're talking about the fourth one, which is the real-time analytic dashboard. The real-time analytic dashboard, live manager visibility of term compliance, knowledge gaps, and engagement, replacing ESRO, large, heavy monthly spreadsheet report. These are the 4 core features of NHS. Then we have the last one, which is the gamification layer. The gamification layer, progress badges, completion strikes, and the leaderboard transform mandatory compliance into something staff choose to engage with. Then this is the 5 core features of NHS.
I'll be talking about the pilot demonstration, the staff and manager experience. Let's bring this off the slides and into real life because a tool is only credible if you can see it working. Look at Amara, a band 5 nurse, 3 years into her role, working rotating 12-hour shifts on a general ward under the current ESR system. Amara received an email every few months telling that her mandatory training is due. She logs on at home after a long shift and clicks through a module on fire safety that looks identical to the one she completed 2 years ago. She finishes in 11 minutes, retains very little and moves on. Under the LearnPulse, Amara's Monday morning shifts looks different. She opens the app on her phone during her pre-shift coffee. The platform prompts her with 3-minute module on updated infection control procedure, and because it is due, because the space repetition engine has identified this as the optimal moment of knowledge reinforcement. The module opens with a patient scenario. She makes a decision, receives immediate feedback, and earns a completion point. She finishes before her shift begins. What does this mean? It means that Amara logs on at home after a 12-hour shift, clicks through a 45-minute generic fire safety module, retains littles, and moves on. And in LearnPulse, Monday pre-shift coffee, app prompts a 4-minute infection control module. Space repetition has flagged it as optimal, a patient scenario, a decision, immediate feedback, a completion badge done before our shift starts. Now let's look at David. The ward manager. David opens his LearnPulse dashboard. You can see at a glance that 9 of his 14 team members have completed their widely learning tasks. 3 have a flagged knowledge gap in medication safety. He assigns them a targeted 3-minute module directly from the dashboard, a task that under ESR would require a manual report, cross-referencing, and a separate email. What does that mean? It means that every month, compliance report by email, manual spreadsheet, cross-referencing, hours spent chasing staff, no visibility of who knows what, only who has clicked what. And also, a Parliamentary Health and Social Care Committee report found the NHS workforce needs time and headspace to engage with digital tools, and that co-designing digital initiative with a staff is essential. Ensure they offer workable improvements. LearnPulse is co-designed with exactly this principle. The staff experience is intuitive. The manager experience is actionable. Neither requires training to use. So according to Health and Social Care Committee, co-designing digital tools with staff is essential to ensure they offer workable improvement to existing practices, which is what the LearnPulse is here to do.
Any learning intervention that cannot be evaluated is not worth implementing. Our evaluation framework is built on Kirkpatrick's 4 levels. Now, refined by James and Wendy Kirkpatrick into what is now known as the New World Kirkpatrick model, which remains the most widely used training evaluation framework in workforce development, control, learning, healthcare training, and leadership development. Now, the level 1 reaction. After every 5 models, a brief in-app pulse survey captures how relevant and engaging staff found the content. This is real-time feedback and not an annual afterthought. Now, the level 2 talks about learning, pre- and post-module knowledge. Assessments are built into the platform. The AI tracks individual knowledge gain per topic, per team, and per trust, generating a live audit trail that replaces paper competency records entirely. Now, the level 3 talks about the behavior. At 90 days, post-training line managers complete a structured observation checklist to assess whether learning is translating into change practice beside in the office. Now the level 4 talks about the results. At 12 months, trusts track mandatory training compliance rates, staff retention figures, and clinical incident frequencies to establish return on investment. Now, an integrative review of Kirkpatrick's framework in nursing training confirms that it has been applied and validated intentionally in healthcare settings, demonstrating its suitability as an evaluation instrument for exactly this kind of intervention. This is not a framework borrowed from another industry. It has been tested in environments directly comparable to the NHS. An integrative review of Kirkpatrick's framework in nursing training confirms it has been applied and validated internationally in healthcare settings. Now, what are we talking about? Level 1 talks about the reaction. The staff find it engaging. And this is what LearnPulse method is talking about. They found it engaging. Now, it was very, very relevant. Now, this is how NHS applied it to according to evaluation framework. Now, level 2 talks about the learning. The staff actually gain any knowledge. Yes, staff gains knowledge, and this is how LearnPulse method, how to use LearnPulse method to assess that. Now, this is how NHS applied it, like I've said before. Now, the level 3 talks about the behavior. Now, it's learning changing practice. It's learning actually changing practice. Now, this is how to do it with the LearnPulse method in 90 days. And this is how the change will occur with the checklist. Now, in NHS application, this is how it was linked. And that's how you get your answers. Now, with level 4, it talks about the results. Is there organizational impact? Is there actually impact in the organization after going through LearnPulse in 12 months tracking? Now, this is how NHS applied it, like I've said before.
All right, this is where we'll do the conclusion. We have the conclusion of the NHS LearnPulse. To close the NHS LearnPulse, the NHS has 1.5 million people to train, a workforce under serious and documented pressure, a national reform program calling for change, and an existing system that its own leadership has described as inadequate. NHS LearnPulse is not a technology solution looking for a problem. It is a direct and evidence theoretically grounded response to a problem that NHS has already identified as and has not yet solved. It is accessible, built for shift workers, not desk workers. It is adaptive, built around individuals and not job titles. And it is an evaluable program built to prove its worth, not just assert it. Like we have here, the accessibility and the adaptive and the evaluable, which makes it easy to evaluate all the trainings that you have in the LearnPulse, the NHS LearnPulse. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions.